Today we wanted to take a moment to walk through the steps necessary to work on your snow thrower in case it doesn't start. First things first, I want to recap the starting configuration for snow engines because they can be a little bit different than your lawnmower. The first thing you need to address is making sure if it has a fuel valve, it's physically turned on. So that allows flow to the carburetor. The next thing we need to do is configure the choke for starting. Now there's usually a diagram that explains which direction is full choke. I want to make sure that my engine is in the full choke position. There's also an ignition switch on the back of the engine here typically, and you need to make sure that that is in place and depressed, otherwise the engine will not start. The last thing you need to do is press the primer bulb 3 times. And that will configure the engine for starting. So let's see if our snow thrower actually starts. All right, within 3 attempts, it still didn't start. So what I'm going to do first is remove the gas cap, and I'm going to look inside the fuel tank and see if there's physical gasoline or liquid sloshing, which I do have in my case. Now, our next step is to remove the spark plug from the engine. And what we're doing with that is we're going to look at the end that goes inside the engine and determine whether it's wet with gasoline or if it's dry. If it's dry, we need to stop right there and potentially look at our fuel system. However, if it's wet, our next step is going to be checking the ignition system. Okay, the next step is we have to actually remove the spark plug. So we're going to need a special tool for that. This is a spark plug wrench tool that Briggs & Stratton offers. It's got the 2 most popular sizes, the 5/8 end and then the 13/16 end. It also has a handle for turning it. We're going to use the 5/8 end here. So we're going to place this over top of the spark plug, get it engaged with the threads. Now I'm going to use the handle with the elbow end to physically loosen the spark plug. And then I'm going to turn it until it all the way is unthreaded. Once it's loose, you have to very carefully remove it from here. It won't come out with the tool, but you'll have to reach down and grab it. And now we have our spark plug. All right, so the spark plug itself looks physically wet with gasoline. So that tells us our fuel system is actually delivering fuel to the combustion chamber. But if this was dry, we would need to take a moment and stop and investigate our fuel system as to why we're not getting fuel to the spark plug. So if you determine that you're not getting any fuel to your combustion chamber, you could be faced with a situation where your carburetor may be plugged with fuel deposits. And at that point, you're probably going to need to take it to a dealership or a trained mechanic to service the carburetor because it gets pretty complicated to work on at that point. But let's take a look at what can happen to the inside of the carburetor. You notice that we have this varnish buildup that happens in the carburetor float area and the bowl itself. And this is what happens when gasoline evaporates out and all of the chemicals that are left behind remain in the carburetor bowl and plug up important small passageways like a jet that's located here that lets all of the fuel from the bowl get into the airstream so it makes the engine run. In order to prevent fuel system problems like you've seen with our example carburetor, you need to begin by treating the fuel in your fuel can. And that starts with choosing a good quality fuel stabilizer like our 5-in-1 advanced fuel treatment. This fuel treatment actually prevents fuel degradation for up to 3 years because it's a little known fact that gasoline actually goes bad in as little as 30 days' time. This fuel stabilizer is an alcohol-free super concentrated formula that prevents ethanol-related fuel problems. As an alternative to conventional gasoline, Briggs & Stratton does offer advanced formula ethanol-free fuel. It features the 5-in-1 fuel treatment and stabilizer built in. It comes with a 92 octane rating, and it's ready to use right out of the can. But since ours is wet, we're going to go ahead and move again to the next step, which is checking spark. All right, so we're going to use a special tool called a spark tester. So this spark tester goes in line between our spark plug, and we're going to hook it straight to an engine ground to verify whether we actually have spark or not. So I'm going to go ahead and hook this up to our spark plug wire on one end. The alligator clip end I'm going to hook to this metal stud here that holds an air guide on. And then we can see our window, and we can also then see if we have spark while I go ahead and pull the engine. All All right, now that we've determined that we actually do have spark here, so we're going to go ahead and replace the spark plug on this engine because it may be fouled or damaged. So I have a brand new spark plug. I'm going to go ahead and reinstall it. Now on this engine, it's a little bit tricky to get it back in place here. So what I'm going to do is start it by hand first, and then I'm going to use my spark plug tool to finish turning it in, and then ultimately tighten it. Now it's good practice to turn it backwards a few turns until you feel the threads seat. All right, it stopped turning for me. I'm going to put a little bit of tightness on it. About a quarter turn. All right, I'm going to reattach my spark plug wire. I will leave my spark plug cover off for now. I do want to verify that it, in fact, even runs. So let's go ahead, try and fire it up. All right, so we've already confirmed that we do have spark, and we just replaced the spark plug. So what we're going to do now is attempt to start the engine. Keep in mind that I already have it configured for starting from the first attempt, so all I'm going to do is pull the rope and see if the engine starts. All right, looks like we were successful at getting our engine running. So we do hope that you found this information was useful. If you need some help with getting your engine up and running, we do recommend visiting one of our local service dealers. There's over 12,000 of them in the US, and you can find them by checking out our website at briggsandstratton.com.